And we're live.
Hello.
Hello.
La, la, la. Hello, all. Welcome. It is Monday afternoon, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter.
He always has to check to make sure I get the right day.
Well, you're kind of asleep at the wheel sometimes.
With days,
and I just
yeah,
have to
they
wake
kind
you
of all
up.
blur together. Well, for me, days are all qualified by what time I have to pick up my kid from school, and different days are different times. So that's how I keep track.
Are you trying to suggest that being a parent is like a job or something like that?
I'm trying to suggest that I have different times every day, and it's kind of sometimes confusing.
Yeah, well, we all have those kinds of days,
Yeah.
but a whole bunch of stories are just kind of blending together, and what better time to have friend of the show, Matt Taibbi, join us again.
I know. He
Yeah.
keeps getting called to the principal's office. That's what it feels like to me. Like, I want to know from him what happened. What did he do this time to get in trouble? Because he got on her naughty list.
We are living in a world where censorship is basically this is the trend of complete authoritarian or totalitarian takeover of a society, where basically people are taught, as Ben Franklin warned, that if you are willing to give up liberty for security, you deserve neither. And that is essentially what's happening. People are being told you must give up your security or your liberty because you need to be safe.
Mm.
And anytime it's the state that's telling you that this is what needs to be done, we often find out that, no, it's because of nefarious activity that is taking place. And so regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, you have to know that censorship is a tool of the elite. It always has been, it always will be, and anyone who embraces it.
And it's running rampant now.
The place I think we could start, because we don't really have to get into this with Matt, is the fact that Elon Musk has decided to reinstate Alex Jones onto the Twitter platform. And to that I say, who gives a shit?
I have something to say about that.
Sure.
Well, I never thought Alex Jones should have been deplatformed anyway. Okay, so let's be clear. So
I don't think Donald Trump should have been deplatformed.
No, again, neither. So, the fact that he did that, again, it's sort of like, it shouldn't be so newsworthy, but it shouldn't be newsworthy because he should have never been deplatformed. So I don't know. I mean, but if Elon needs like a pat on the head for, being, not a fascist in his, in the running of this company, good boy, Elon, good boy, I don't understand. Like, is it that he wants props for, just doing what should have just been done in the first place?
The most amazing part about the whole Alex Jones story is that he wasn't deplatformed because, thank you, Asmith, I appreciate that. I did get a haircut.
Of course you did, everyone knows.
Yeah, I know. Well, when I get a haircut, it's kind of obvious. The fact is, it turns out that Alex Jones was not deplatformed because of the commentary he made regarding Sandy Hook. He was deplatformed because he went after one of the, what you would consider to be the untouchables, if you will, at CNN, and Oliver Darcy, who's best buddies with Brian Stelter, who is basically Brian Stelter, who is Martin Prince from The Simpsons in human form. That is what he is.
I don't know what that means.
He's the hall monitor.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy that tattletales on everybody because
Right.
he wants to be the goody two shoes.
Yeah, he's been shoved in some lockers in his day.
100%. He should. He's shoved.
And then, by the way, but this is when I show my age, because down here in Florida, there's no more lockers. They got rid of lockers.
They did?
There's no lockers. There's gym lockers, but they're those sort of like meshy looking.
So where do people put their stuff now?
They don't, but everyone uses laptops and everything, and they don't carry books anymore anyway. So.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
No, there's no lockers anymore.
Oh,
now, North places probably still do for coats and stuff. Like, I can't speak as to what goes on, but I know there's no lockers down here anymore. Like for hallway, there's no lockers.
That is deeply disturbing.
But the point is that at my age, there are certain people that needed to get shoved into a locker. And Brian Stelter just strikes me.
And Oliver Darcy is another person.
I don't know who that is.
And listen, that's not to say that Alex Jones is not a blowhard who doesn't say things specifically for shock value and is all about making money. He's a total buffoon. Does he say? But here's the thing, and this is something I wanted to bring up because, a lot of times people are like, well, he's an irredeemable person and he does all of these stupid things and whatnot. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to people like Alex Jones, who ascertain such a massive platform, they actually do tell the truth about a number of key issues. Then they go off the deep end and do lots of crazy-ish. Not the least of which is Alex Jones is one of those people who is noted for peddling snake oil. Like, that is the thing that he does.
I feel like there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah,
though.
he wants to sell you these pills, which, will basically make you healthy.
But then why does he look so unhealthy?
Because he doesn't practice what he preaches.
Oh,
probably.
so he's not taking his own snake oil.
He definitely strikes me as somebody who hits the bottle pretty hard.
Oh,
he just kind of gives off that vibe.
The whole point is that I don't think he needed to ever be, I don't agree with deplatforming people, even when they're, he's a freak show.
It only goes to show you that so many people still don't understand, and everyone's always wondering, like, in spite of these sort of enlightenment and the technology and the things that we're living in today, that we should be more reasonable about these things. But no, human nature takes over, and
it's fear
and groupthink. That's also a dangerous element as well.
It's fear-based, like our current McCarthyism, anti-Semitism, brigade, special counsel, sign allegiances, all this stuff, and people don't see that this is like McCarthyism. You're an anti-Semite, and you're an anti-Semite, and you're an anti-Semite. And it just, the parallels are so glaring to me that it's strange that it's not being pointed out. But yet again, everybody's so scared to be called an anti-Semite. That's what it was. Everybody was so scared to be called out that they didn't dare challenge it. That's what we're seeing now. And that's what they're counting on. That's how they're trying to shut people up, is scaring people away. It's not working. But
it also goes to show you that there are a lot of people that, in spite of all the things that Elon Musk has done, that they don't like. And, I've been very adamant that Elon Musk is anti-labor. And I think that that's something that people just can't ignore. They can pretend like it's not a thing, but he's been very adamant that I don't like unions. I don't think they should exist.
Why would he like unions?
Because then he would have to pay all of his workers a reasonable wage. And who wants to do that? How do you become worth $200 billion if you are not properly?
We should talk with Matt about Elon.
Well, sure.
There was a situation there.
There was.
There was a situation.
And it just depends on, a lot of people feel that Elon Musk is bipolar, that he ebbs and flows between how he's feeling at one moment, then he's feeling another way.
He's a petulant child.
It's almost like you got to catch him at the right moment to get him to make the right decision. And in this case,
he's Veruca Salt.
Well, some people, including Mark Dice, who a lot of people probably don't like, but I happen to find some of his work hilarious, neither here nor there.
I don't even know who that is.
Politics, but he was one of the biggest, he was one of the, what I would consider most adamant supporters of free speech, and that Alex Jones should be back on the platform. So eventually they were able to convince Musk to do a poll, which they did. Musk is smart, successful, and crazy, as are a lot of billionaires. That is kind of the trend. And so in Musk's case, they just got him at the right time. He did a poll, and overwhelmingly, like 3 out of 4 people said that Alex Jones should be brought back onto the platform. And so they brought him back on. And of course, nothing, I've checked him, nothing outrageous. That doesn't mean that's not coming. But remember, a lot of the things that a lot of the people will say is strictly for shock value because it sells. That's what sells on social media. If you're willing to be outlandish and, say the first thing that comes to your mind.
See, and exactly, Azimuth, this is the point. The smart, the crazy, the bipolar, the even being like petulant, right? Like I could even get past those things. It's that he oozes entitlement and privilege, and it just makes me want to retch when I see him. So he very well might be brilliant. He could be all those things. I really don't care one way or the other. He comes off like a spoiled douchebag to me. That's it. That's all I see. So I don't know him. I've never met him. I know he doesn't treat his workers well, hence part of the entitlement that I think he suffers from. And so he just comes off like an asshole to me. So that's the truth. Like I don't. He could be the smartest person. I don't care.
We've seen for a long time the trend with a lot of YouTubers and content creators and people that you've specifically said many times, you would never go down that path. Like you would never sell a show in a way that is unbecoming of the mission that we're trying to do on the show. Yet there are a lot of people that we've observed that will absolutely throw whatever you would consider integrity out the window if it means that it's going to get clicks.
Well, okay. And this is a very big distinction between us, and we've said it before. Like, this isn't what we do. And that's part of it. So with that also comes the knowledge that if this was what we did, we would have to be a lot more, cognizant of getting clicks and doing that. So we do to some extent have the luxury of maintaining our, principles. But Yeah, no, I mean, we're doing this to like as part of our bigger mission. We're not doing this to create, Joe Rogan size podcast. I mean, it would be cool because that would be a good sign for our mission, but that's not what this is not like what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is create forward momentum politically and incorporate the concept of service into politics.
It is kind of amazing when you think about it, when you look at the trends, particularly on, different YouTube channels will just play clips of Joe Rogan and make money off of that and make commentary on clips of Joe Rogan.
Well, and that's fine. Look, I don't begrudge anybody, however they want to do what they want to do to make a living, and that's fine. There's content creators that do that I like and I watch. I have a lot of fun content creators that have nothing to do with politics that if it weren't for them, I'd probably lose my mind. Looking at you, Shane and Hannah Burkaw, love you guys. I wish we could get them to come on the show. But anyway.
Who are they?
That's Squirmy and Grubs.
Oh, okay.
And I do love them. And there are certain people that because their content is so not political, it's just such a break. It's so pleasing.
Yeah, but I still think people watch them because there is the shock value of.
Why? Oh, because he's
because
disabled?
He is how he is and she's how she is.
Okay, so yeah. Squirmy and Grubs. You guys check them out. They're just so cute. It's Shane and Hannah Burkaw. They're an interabled couple, which is a whole thing I've learned. I didn't even know that was a phrase.
That's an actual term?
No, but it makes sense. I mean, it makes complete sense. And their show is just about their lives. Like the fact that he's disabled, yes, that's part of their life, but it is by no means the crux of what they did. Like, it's just I don't know. He's just very smart and funny, and I just really like his sense of humor. And I have this feeling that he and I would just get along really well. I mean, I like her too. She's adorable. She's a lot more like, introverted than he is. But yeah.
Yeah.
I do like you guys, Shane and Hannah. Can you call?
Yeah, I know. They've been doing their show for a while.
I know. I do love them.
But they also do play into that whole, shock value and clickbait type stuff.
They do, but they do it jokingly. Like, yes, they'll put up a headline of why I should leave my husband. And it'll be them talking about responding to some troll's comment. So, yeah. And when I look at that, I don't think she's leaving him. So, yes, they do stuff like that. But I think they do it it's more with humor and mocking than it is with, them thinking they're going to get people to think that. You know what I mean? They're not trying to mislead anybody. They're being satirical. That's the thing. He's and I know that they both work on their videos, but they there's a very good sense of humor there with them.
Well, I do think.
Trace, thank you, Trace.
God bless you. That's very sweet.
So sweet.
I hope that's not because of my haircut, but if it is, I'll take credit for it. I mean, haircuts are not cheap.
This is clearly someone
it's not cheap,
who's single and has no children.
Oh, God damn you. Yeah,
it's true.
Just
somebody who could just be so self-focused.
I thought she was, no, I mean, I'm not vain. What is the matter with you?
No.
I'm not vain.
No.
Why? Because I take care of myself? That makes me vain?
No.
That doesn't
no. You obsessing about your hair makes you vain.
I'm not upset.
Oh, every time we sit down here, you like have to check your hair. You're always like, there's always an observation about your hair. I don't think we've ever sat down here where you didn't have an observation about your hair.
I actually like the way my hair is right now.
This is what I'm talking about.
If I could have my hair this way all the time, I think that would be great. How about your hair?
My hair could use definitely a scrub, but no time today.
That's a little vain, Jen.
No. Now that has to do with being well kept.
Okay. And you're saying that I'm not.
I'm saying that you are well kept, but you are also sometimes vain. That's what I'm saying.
All right, so we're waiting on word from Matt. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, I'm going to play you guys a quick clip because if there is anything positive to talk about, it's not going to be much because right now we're literally circling through hell. But here's a little something positive that we found.
Here we are.
Apparently there is an attempt. Now, again, we'll have a lot to say about it in a minute because there's a little underlying component to this story. But apparently the Biden administration has approved a high-speed rail line from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. So let's see what they have to say.
It's down here,
Yeah, we're going to play the
okay. You just want to play it.
For this
okay.
one,
And now the project is getting a boost in the form of a $3+ billion federal investment from the Biden administration.
Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi and former Governor Jerry Brown talked about 2 high-speed rail projects between L.A. and San Francisco and L.A. to Vegas.
This massive federal investment takes us one step closer to high-speed rail as a reality.
The $3 billion will allow the first phase of the project already under construction, a 171-mile route connecting Bakersfield and Merced, to stay on track for completion sometime between 2030 and 2033.
Nancy Pelosi knows how to push things.
Well, it's funny. I can't get over how Pelosi is still in politics, much less the way that she is presenting herself.
She looks a little worn.
Just slightly worn?
She looks a little weathered.
Weathered. Okay. Well, that's just
Please don't.
Don't it.
Don't.
Dad doesn't like it when I have.
First of all, I don't think you do a good job with women.
I wasn't trying to do a good job with women.
No, I'm just saying.
Trying to stay a point here.
Yeah, no, she's not good. So I look at the speed rail thing, the high speed rail, and obviously I was happy that Florida finally has our Bright Line. Now actually will connect all the way to Orlando. It's amazing. It only took however many years to get that to happen. And I recognize that there is definitely benefit to this. But anybody who's been watching this show for any amount of time knows that when I look at the big picture, I recognize that the climate crisis cannot be solved by throwing money and technology at it, and that all of these things have so many other environmental costs that are never really taken into consideration. So my level of excitement post reading Bright Green Lies, which everyone should read Bright Green Lies, is that a lot of these things are very anticlimactic for me because, first of all, I realize how limited they are. I realize that politically, just to even get that little bit done is virtually impossible. Then it'll stall there. Then there'll be this problem, and there'll be that problem, because this is not a system to help people. This is a system for profit. And so when that's the case, their motive isn't about infrastructure. Their motive is about profit. And so these types of projects to me, it's hard for me to get very excited about. And also I know that in the long run, this is not what we need to be doing as a species.
The problem more than anything else that no one is really talking about. I mean, again, there's multiple layers to the story that you have to keep in mind. Not the first of which of that right now, the Biden administration is desperate for anything. So, of course, let's build a high-speed rail system in a part of the country that doesn't really need it necessarily. Okay, Los Angeles to Las Vegas, that's not what I would consider to be the first place that comes to mind.
The place you need to put those are a place where you have unaffordable housing and a lot of working people.
Like Fresno to Los Angeles. That would make sense.
Or not even north-south, but sometimes east-west. You've got people that work out in wherever and work in LA and they can't afford. I'm just saying, but there again, this isn't for helping people. This is about profit. Yeah,
there's no question that this was not I wouldn't even consider it to be a thought-out scenario, but it's a scenario where on paper, it does make sense. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate. We're huge advocates for high-speed rail. It's one of the things that could actually mitigate some of the environmental issues that we have. But again,
but not the way we do it.
No, and you're also not bringing up the fact that they have attempted to build high-speed rail in California for many years, and it has been delayed and delayed and delayed. And of course, it is mounted expense after expense after expense because everything is overregulated in California.
It's a whole other set of problems, which is why it's hard to get excited about a project like this. Between right now and that project seeing any benefit to any working person is so far off that it's like even just wrapping my head around it. I don't see the benefit. And again, that's not solving our climate problem.
No, it's not solving our climate problem, and I don't really think that was ever the intent.
No, because if it was the intent, it would be done differently. If we had something that, and I'm loath to say Green New Deal, but if there was a good public works project, bill, infrastructure going through that the government was doing back like they did with FDR, and you had, like the Civilian Conservation Corps, and you had all those things going on, and that was what was creating the rail, then that would be a really good thing for us.
Yeah.
But what happens is these projects will get bidded out to private companies, and it'll all be about their shareholders and the profits. And honestly, I don't even get me started on where they mine their materials from, and children that are digging for things with their hands. So that's the problem. So if we did these things through acts of public works, that would be very different for me. That's how it needs to happen. These need to be public works done by us for us. And instead, it's companies doing it, often abusing their workers. It generally fails to employ people in the location that need the employment. And I'll bet you anything that they're not even necessarily going to make sure that they're using union shops.
Well,
and who knows where they source their materials from. There are so many questions about this that this is a problem for me now in terms of my level of education on this, is I can't even just smile and be happy. Like 10 years ago, I would have gone, oh, cool.
they're trying.
No, look, we're getting a railroad. We're getting a new railroad. Oh, great. Like I'd be all excited about it. And now I see it and I'm like, yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's going to spend more than it's worth. And it's only going to benefit the rich people.
And
God, I'm
course,
so
my guess is
cynical now.
No, well, but you have a right
Oh
to be.
my God,
Everyone's like,
that's just so horrible.
well, the other problem that we also have in politics is that we have this tendency to applaud people for doing something that isn't even done yet. It's like, oh, did you see they're going to build high-speed rail in about 25 years? But, at some point they're going to get it done.
Right. It's like they're getting the talking point photo op for it without having to actually accomplish it. And that happens all the time. But yeah.
Guys,
so I will be excited about rail when it's done properly. And by properly, I mean by according to how I say so. No, but it needs to be part of public works. It cannot be private for-profit entities bidding out and all that kind of crap.
I tell you what, Mr. President, if you get the high-speed rail from LA to Vegas completed before November 3rd, maybe I'll think about voting for you.
I still won't. Apparently he could be bought with somehow a railroad that doesn't even go anywhere near where he lives.
Yeah, but genocide is just a part of life. You have to accept that reality.
What I'm saying, yeah, genocide is just a part of life. Yeah. The truth is he lost me with the railroad workers. Yeah. Doubled down on the oil drilling.
Is the high-speed rail going to be built with union labor?
Who knows?
I doubt that.
I don't think so.
I mean, it is California.
Okay, fine. But even in California, we know that it's still union memberships, union shops are just not huge anymore. That even in California, even in states that have union, free union memberships and stuff, like it's not big there. No, they'll use and do not get, and again, the materials, how they source the materials that has actually nothing to do with us and everything to do with Africa. So all of it is just, it's not a feel good thing for me anymore to just see that they're planning that.
Thank you, Teresa. I thought that's what it was for. And thank you for verifying. See, you're wrong. It actually is about my vanity.
That's so ridiculous.
But don't ever let a good opportunity for Travers to come and, take me down a peg and make me look like I'm 12.
No, he's insulting me because he thinks it's funny that people think that I'm your mom.
I don't think that at all.
It is because he made that comment last
time.
I know it is Travers. No, he is. He is implying that I look like your mom.
Guys, we're going to try a little experiment now because unfortunately, and this is the last, listen, we love Matt. He unfortunately has clearly forgotten that he was scheduled to be on here today. I even emailed his assistant. But as you have pointed out, especially with bigger names that come on our show, have to have a cell phone. Have to have at least somebody's cell phone number to connect with.
It happens. Well, and and people get caught up with stuff. I mean, it was hard for us to get Cornel West to pin down times.
Yes, but we were able to get that done because we connected with his wife and we had her directly through cell phone connection. And so as a result, that made the situation
that's part of it. Yeah.
I don't think Matt's malicious in any way. He just forgot.
No. And here's the thing.
I sent him the email last night. It wasn't like
it'll just prolong us when we'll have we'll have a reprieve for being demonetized because my gut instinct is that we'll find out having him on again post that happening, we'll be able to know if my theory is true. I actually do think that when we had Matt Taibbi on and we were talking about his interaction with our esteemed Congresswoman, that was why we got demonetized. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it either way. I mean, hopefully he will make it. But here's the thing. I want to do a little test for what we are going to try to do now to try to get Matt's attention. So for all of you to help us, and this is something that I also want us to do from now on when shows end. So the first thing I would like you guys to do is to go over to Twitter and tag Matt and ask him how come he's not on Generational Change. All of you go do it, because if he gets like 25 messages, 35 messages at once, there's no way he's not going to notice it, because they get the pings on their phone. So when they say bing, 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 generational, oh shit.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll
so
see.
if you could do that, and his assistant is, well, nah, I'm not
Okay, Azimuth, I don't know how long you've been around, and to think I'm a little rough on him. I think that...
A little bit. I think you're a little... You insult
you know
me
what?
a little. You insult me a little bit. A little bit.
You don't know our story. You do not know our story.
I'm a jerk.
He has his moments. And so
do you.
I do, but I've not been caught being abusive to you on a hot bike before.
I have a lot of stress in my life.
But I mean, yeah. And yeah, you thought we were siblings. Well, that makes more sense. Our relationship is really more of like, he's more like Kramer to my family. He's more like Kramer. It would probably be a better.
A little bit more of a Kramer thing going on, I understand.
He comes into the house and looks for food. That's Kramer. Is it not?
If the food is good, yes.
You come in.
The food has to be presentable. It has to be enjoyable.
First of all, he has code that works to get in my house, which I've actually thought Jason should have changed by now, but apparently his code still works. Gets himself in the house.
We've got one more story we can cover, and hopefully Matt will be given attention. But guys, the other thing I want to mention is that when our stream ends, and what our goal is to obviously beat the algorithm as best we can.
Beat the algorithm.
One of the things, and I'll bring it up before we go off the air again. Make sure that as soon as our stream ends, and it is officially logged on the Generational Change YouTube channel, please go on, just leave a quick comment. Great show, enjoyed the guests, whatever you're going to say.
How come these don't count as that?
It just doesn't. It's different. It's a live stream versus a...
So in other words, the comments only really count after it's been posted?
Yeah. Yeah, for whatever reason, that's how it works. And so if you guys can do that, I have no doubt it's going to help with the numbers, because much like an Instagram post, a Twitter post, if everybody immediately gets on there and is constantly commenting, it's going to generate activity.
You want to know our origin story? We've talked about it before. No, I mean, we've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
About what is our origin story. I don't think it's that interesting.
No, Jen and I had met on Tim Canova's congressional campaign.
It was the end. Yeah. It was the
congressional campaign in 2016.
Yeah.
We kept in touch through Facebook, but then
I saw him. Do you remember? On Jordan. He was sitting with Jordan
and then
on a live stream, and I'm like, there's Peter. And then because I'd watched Jordan before. And then we just.
And then the next thing you know, we ended up at the same comedy show of all people.
We did not know. We agreed to connect.
Yes, but we met at again, Graham Elwood and Ron Placone. And this was in Miami. And we're sitting and we're talking, and I don't know what, but I just said, you know what, I hate, but you would make a very formidable.
You didn't say it that night. She did not say it that.
Sure
no, we had communicated, and then we started talking on the phone when you sort of, I guess you just sort of put my resume together in your head and said, you would be a formidable opponent. You should run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We were on the phone, and I said to you, I'm like, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, get out of here. You're crazy. And then that was that. So basically, we then ran a congressional campaign just like by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
And it's like being in a war bunker kind of situation feeling. And actually, I compare it to being on a roller coaster that's on fire.
Yeah, well, comparing it to a war bunker is not a fair comparison.
No, only in that you bond with people that you're in this thing together. That's the only thing I meant by it. Like in terms of like an intense short-term situation wherein you're with people that you're all sort of like fighting this thing together kind of feeling. That's what I meant by
I
war
agree
bunker.
with
Not like dangerous.
No, I definitely agree
But-
that it was intense, and that's putting it nice.
And then after the campaign, and we did well, given especially that there was a pandemic, blah, blah, blah. So that was in 2020. And then we transitioned the campaign into an organization, and we do like different types of community service stuff. We donate to non-corporate candidates, and we kept our platform with this podcast. I decided that one of the things I loved about running was the amount of really cool people I got to talk to. And then by keeping this, we get to invite really cool people on. Like I got to have Dr. Cornel West come on my little podcast in my little garage here at my house and talk to me. And so like, that's why I do this. I've said it many times. I literally do. My ulterior motive is getting people that I really want to talk to and using this show, because otherwise it's creepy, right? Like I'm not going to just like try to connect with Cornel West just to talk to him. Hey, I really want to just talk to you. It's creepy. So it allows me to talk to people I want to talk to without being creepy.
Okay, but they may still think you're creepy anyway.
They very well might think I'm creepy, but that's really what this show is about. It was about creating long form interviews and putting out information to help educate people. And we have more than 3 years of content. I'm very proud of our content. Like we've had some amazing guests and done some amazing interviews. But so yes, that's our origin story. We met on a campaign and then just decided to run for Congress.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Still talking about the person that Jen ran against. So without further ado, we're going to run the clip and we're going to comment on it. So Matt Taibbi, for whatever reason, had to be dragged back to Congress to talk about censorship again.
See, and this is what I really wanted to talk to him about. I want to understand why,
Well, hopefully if he does show up at some point over the next, 45 minutes, we'll be able to address that fact. But here is a clip
Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics asserts that journalists should avoid political activities that can compromise integrity or credibility. Being a Republican witness today certainly casts a cloud over your objectivity. But a deeper concern that I have relates to the ethics of how journalists receive and present certain information. Journalists should avoid accepting spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends.
Really? You wouldn't agree that a journalist should avoid spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted?
The thing you have to understand about what she's saying right now that is so significant, and this is and remember, there's a lot of psychological warfare that goes on with this woman.
We're going to get demonetized even without Matt being here.
She was 1,000% exposed across the board for her activity as the head of the Democratic National Committee. So when somebody like her comes out and says you are literally cherry picking information, here's the only thing that matters, Congresswoman, is the information true or false? That's it.
But can anybody else see what bothers me the most about all of this? Is why is she so vile? Why is she so nasty and shrewd and angry? And like, why does she need to speak? This is what perplexes me and bothers me the most, quite frankly. Forget the fact that she's on a complete witch hunt a la Joseph McCarthy, which should be freaking everybody out. Okay, that everybody's an anti-Semite is a absolute ridiculous McCarthyite type of, campaign she's on. But it's the manner in which she speaks to people that are sitting there voluntarily giving their time to someone who actually works for them. I want people to try to understand this woman is our employee, and she is sitting there with a smart, rude mouth being so nasty and disrespectful to someone who is voluntarily sitting there to give them answers to things they want answers to. And it's embarrassing to me, quite honestly, everybody in our district, this is embarrassing. If more people saw this, I think that they probably would feel that way, but this doesn't get like mainstream play as much for most people. They don't see it, but she's just so nasty. She is the worst representative in terms of that's how she talks to people. District 25, I swear we could do better.
incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion?
Congresswoman, I've done probably a dozen stories involving whistleblowers. Every reported story that I've ever done across 3 decades involves sources who have motives. Every time you do a story, you're making a balancing test between the public
reclaiming
interest.
my time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I ask you this because before you became Elon Musk's hand-picked journalist, and pardon the oxymoron.
This is not the new thing.
Yeah.
Guys, this is the older clip.
I assume that you've got other stuff, Colin. I hope
No.
I'm not just
And the
playing
truth
this
is,
old-
it's more of the same.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the truth. It's more of the same. But this is from the original here. But he has been. Oh no, maybe that wasn't because the
No, this
original
is
one,
the original clip.
Schellenberg.
No, this is the original clip.
I thought
Schellenberg was there.
was not. Oh, yes.
But this
okay.
this is like specific. But I specifically asked, so we have some stuff from the most recent.
Doesn't matter. And you know
encounter that
what?
they had.
And he's not here, so it doesn't really matter. But the point is that she is just sitting there so nastily trying. It's really like, honest. Again, I was a litigator. I've been in courtrooms with prosecutors and defense counsels and cross-examination, and there's no need to speak to people this way.
What's her obsession with pink?
Well, it's her homage to the breast cancer.
Okay.
It's the breast cancer.
I know it had to be something.
It's her homage to breast cancer awareness.
You stated this on Joe Rogan's podcast about being spoon-fed information, and I quote, "I think that's true of any kind of journalism," and you'll see it behind me here. "I think that's true of any kind of journalism. Once you start getting handed things, then you've lost. They have you at that point, and you got to get out of that habit. You just can't cross that line. Do you still believe what you told Mr. Rogan? Yes or no?" Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Now, you crossed that line with the Twitter files.
No.
Elon Musk, it's my time. Please do not interrupt me. Elon Musk spoon-fed. Elon Musk.
This again. I cannot listen to this again. Reclaiming my time. We're so going to get demonetized. And Matt Taibbi wasn't even here. Guys, join us on Patreon because we are so asking for it. You realize that, right? Okay.
Okay, you know what? We really don't need to continue this clip.
It's brutal. So I feel
now,
like, oh my God.
So now we're going to show you an updated clip because this is not a repeat. This is real. This is the same woman wearing the same exact outfit.
Well, she probably always wears that as her homage to the breast cancer survivor.
Anytime she has her close-up on TV, she must show her true colors. I don't know. Pink is the new black. Something.
No, don't
dark.
make black is great. I look great in black. Don't ruin black.
Burgundy.
No, don't ruin any color.
This is the gentlelady from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing young about her.
All of us here
More
today have
ladylike.
heard the stories of the depths of human depravity from the Hamas attack, resulting in unthinkable brutality, including the mass murder of innocent Jews and civilians on October 7th. Witnessing such barbarity steals part of your humanity, and it demonstrates how hatred can drive humans to do unspeakable things to one another. And nowhere is hatred more evident than on social media. Since the October 7th attack, anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim hate speech has exploded online. In just 1 month after the attack, the hashtag Hitler was right appeared in over 46,000 posts. But the rhetoric isn't limited to hate speech and death threats. Jewish conspiracy theories and disinformation continually find safe harbor on social media platforms. Even the racist and anti-Semitic Great Replacement theory was recently amplified on Twitter/X by none other than its owner, Elon Musk, and the right-wing darling, Tucker Carlson. Terrorists use the platforms to terrorize target populations.
Everybody.
And Hamas even...
She really has this sense of self-righteousness.
Oh, she loves hearing herself talk, but the way she talks, she adds qualifiers and adjectives to everything she says, and it's always a criticism. It's always a slam every single time. He's a right-wing darling, and you're a so-called journalist.
And what are you?
That's my so-called representative. We have that in Storytime. We could have had my so-called representative, because the thing about this is she's so concerned with anti-Semitism, and yet I do not think I've ever seen any more of one single person that would make me want to hate Jewish people than her. I honestly don't. I cannot think of somebody to put on television as a worse representative of what Jews are and who Jews are and what we look like than Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And now we're going to get demonetized.
used the personal accounts of hostages and victims to live stream their brutality to incite further violence. Mr. Taibbi, yes or no, should social media companies allow rape and murder to be live streamed by terrorists on their platforms in order to create fear and incite violence?
I believe that would violate their terms of service, would it not?
So your answer is no, it should not, they should not be allowed to do that?
Live stream rape and murder? No,
Right.
I think that would count as speech that would be prohibited under their terms of service.
Good. You do have absolutist policies, but
I do not have absolute. I do not have.
Please don't interrupt me. You have absolute. I've asked your question. You answered it. You do have absolutist policies. At least they have some limits. But I think a Homeland Security official.
With respect, Congressman, all journalists operate
reclaiming
under
my time.
limits.
That is her go-to line, reclaiming my time because I don't want to hear what you have to say.
But people watch, like the way in which that she is speaking is so condescending and so rude and just disrespectful. And she truly believes that she is of greater status than whoever it is she's speaking to, and therefore she is entitled to speak to people however she sees fit. And in fact, she works for him. And this is all twisted, people. They have it all twisted. She is our employee. How dare she speak to him this way? So condescending. Like, there is no way I would voluntarily ever sit for that. There is no way. I was telling them before, I would want to go up and give her the squishy face. When my kids were nasty and rude, do this. Now, I never did it as bad as my mom did it, because my mom almost felt like she would make my cheeks cross over. But like, that is what I want to do. And I would have to get up and walk out. There is no way I would voluntarily sit there and let someone speak to me that way. I just find this fascinating. That's what I really wanted to talk with him about.
If a Homeland Security official echoed your opinion, you would call it censorship, but I'm glad that at least you acknowledge that rape and murder should not be allowed on social media platforms. Ms. Troy, I have the same question. Yes or no? Should social media companies take down brutal images of rape and murder live streamed by Hamas or similar groups like ISIS?
I agree with Mr.
No, Ms. Troy.
Oh,
Ms. Troy.
Ms. Troy. You were looking at me, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I believe they should follow their internal policies and they should absolutely not leave content up like that. And I can tell you, as someone who worked on the Christchurch shooting where that terrorist live streamed the attack, which was horrifying, horrific, we did have conversations. We had official meetings with social media as an international community to discuss terrorist use of the internet and this violent rhetoric on there and what it would lead to more potential violence. These conversations were done in conjunction with social media companies, and it was up to them on their policies to make their decision on whether that met the threshold.
And that's exactly the point. Can you talk about, during your time at the Trump White House, did you experience situations where information shared on social media presented a national security concern?
Yes, there were multiple times. I will also reference what happened at the El Paso Walmart shooting, where there was reference to the Great Replacement. That manifesto was posted on social media. That social media platform did not
is seriously just like, I feel like
you can basically pull any person you want to go up there and basically just say whatever you want to. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And as Wasserman Schultz has shown, she will, and this is part of the reason why I have maintained that she has no business whatsoever, much less being in Congress, but no business whatsoever being on the Judiciary Committee.
I know we argue about this because I don't agree. I think that anybody in Congress could sit on any committee.
But you see what Debbie's doing, if this was actually a courtroom, is that she's leading the witness. When a witness is not giving her the information that she wants to hear, like Matt, I'm reclaiming my time, don't want to hear you. Whereas when the lady who was handpicked is coming, could you explain to
you
people
do realize that, and she thinks that she's being so slick and getting the information that she wants to put out, but yet she comes off like such a shrew. And the worst part about all of this, people, please be paying attention to this. This is all part of a very big picture of capital and empire censoring. And this is something that, to me, on one hand, is very scary because we're seeing it more and more. The censorship right now is out of control. And they do it in a bunch of different ways. Sometimes it's just flat out, they'll deplatform somebody, right? Sometimes it's just you scare people so that they won't say certain things. You fire certain people. Like, it's all different ways that they try to keep it quiet. But on the other hand, even though it's scary, it's somewhat inspired, because the truth is they wouldn't be running around like this if they weren't scared.
Oh, of course.
And it is working. All of the people that are protesting that are at places like the weapons manufacturers outside Anthony Blinken's house, all of that is working. And we're not going to see it working directly. What we're going to see is increased censorship, because that's how they're going to come down. It's like the hammer of Thor, and they're very scared, but their entire facade is crumbling. It is crumbling. And it's just hard for people in this country specifically to see that. I would suggest—
It scares them.
It's scary, but they also are not privy to the information because we're in such an echo chamber bubble. I would really recommend people to watch news sources from other continents. I hit each continent every day from a news source and it's just, not only it's nice to know what's going on in other places, but it's really interesting to hear the perception of us. And right now, we looked at the UN Security Council, voted for a ceasefire, and we vetoed it.
Here we go.
Asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
I was not focused on, but I should have been. The irrefutable fact that a call for genocide of Jewish people is a call for some of the most terrible violence human beings can perpetrate.
So Peter failed to set up this clip.
Jesus
Did anybody
Christ,
know
give
it was
me
the
a break.
UN thing? I thought you were
No, I thought I was.
the UN.
I apologize, and I thought it was the UN
Oh,
thing.
okay.
And again, we need to get stop getting our signals crossed between us, Colin, and whatever. But this show's been all over the place.
We're all over the place, people.
It is what it is.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, and we were going to address this as a primary topic today, President of UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, Liz Magill, has stepped down. But as we know, that's really just—
She was bullied.
Bullied into stepping down, or she would have been fired. And so
several others are on the chopping block, by the way, Harvard, and there's another one.
This is all one big conglomerate of things that are happening right now in conjunction with Israel's genocide on Gaza. So over the weekend, the UN Security Council had a vote. 15 nations were allowed to vote. The UK, like the pussies they are, decided to abstain.
But again, people who abstain, go home.
13 nations voted and the genocide. And who was the one nation that said no?
Not even that said no. We literally have the power to veto. If you're one of the 5 main— there's this whole thing about the UN, which makes it about as democratic as the Democratic Party. It's essentially we're superdelegate. And as a superdelegate, we get to veto, even though there was a majority of countries. That's just how it works. Again, it's like superdelegates. So
I thought it was interesting during the primary in 2016 when they said, do you know what one superdelegate is the equivalent of? 10,000 votes.
Yeah. So this is how this works. But so apparently, I'm not exactly sure what it is, what the information is that that the president of UPenn was called in about, she was being kind of, but all these people are being witch hunted. I'm sorry, but they are, no offense to my witch friends.
The whole purpose of this witch hunt has to do with the cracking down of the First Amendment rights of students on various campuses throughout the country that believe in a free Palestine. Is there going to be people that are going to protest that will ultimately say death to Jews or, end the state of Israel shouldn't exist? Of course. And that's called free speech.
But that doesn't help. Okay. No. Like the whole reputation. And I grew up sort of knowing this, like that a lot of people had about Jews is that somehow there's this sort of like global Jewish cabal that sort of runs the world, right? Like there's this sort of paranoia. Well, when you have people like Debbie and other people that represent Jews sitting there trying to shut down, censor, and end everything, call everybody an anti-Semite, you're making them right. You're making that conspiracy about this powerful Jewish cabal, you're making it correct. Because you're sitting there as a cabal shutting down speech because you don't like the idea that some people might say mean things about Jews. And so because of that, we don't have free speech.
Well, what you're also seeing is the exposure of the Jewish billionaire class, which, as I've said all along, that this is a class war. The people who are in favor of what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people right now are people of exceptional affluence for the most part. There is a significant portion of the Jewish population that is working class, middle class, in a number of cases, even upper middle class, who are looking at this and saying, this is a genocide. Stop. End it.
Basically, here's the thing of when you know people are so privileged and entitled, like my congresswoman. She actually believes that she knows better than the United Nations, Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and every other international organization that has called this a genocide, but she knows better. The arrogance,
And let's not forget the trillions and trillions of dollars in natural gas that is in Gaza.
Yeah.
And they want it.
Well, and interestingly enough, back in, was it June or July, there was a leasing permit sold.
Yeah.
There has been some exchange of permitting off the coast of Gaza for drilling, and that went down in June, July. So if you think that none of that is related, you just haven't been watching our show long enough.
Let's continue.
Magill has agreed to stay on until an interim president is appointed and will remain a tenured faculty member, according to the chair of the Board of Trustees.
At Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
Along with Magill, Harvard University President Claudine Gay and Massachusetts Institute of Technology President Sally Kornbluth also testified.
They failed on the global stage, Mark. What will go down in congressional history as the most viewed congressional testimony in the history of the United States Congress. 3 university presidents could not answer correctly the question, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate their university's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment?
You know, Elise Stefanik,
I have to say something about that, because I have a feeling, and again, this is where I don't know the actual, what was put out there that they're trying to stifle, but what they're doing is they're taking the phrase from the river to the sea, and they're conflating it and saying that it means they want to genocide the Jews. Now, I do not know what happened on all 3 of these campuses. For all I know, there were people literally marching with signs saying, kill Jews, genocide Jews, okay? That could have happened.
We would have seen the signs if that was the case, which was not.
So my thought is, chances are people were shouting things from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and people like Debbie that are constantly, putting out this ridiculous Zionist trope that implies genocide of the Jews, which it does not. It just doesn't. You can't have your own facts. You just can't. So that's what they're saying. So if that's in fact what the students were saying, then that's why these presidents cannot say that violates the standards. Now, I don't know why they didn't ask for clarification. I would have said, well, they must know. See, I don't know why they didn't say nobody called for genocide. What they said was da-da-da-da. That's why I don't understand. And so I would need to know. And by the way, if there are psycho people out there, which there are, that yelled horrible things, it's possible. Grow up. You will not survive this world. I feel like we were kids and we knew better. Sticks and Stones. Remember? I'm much more concerned with the actual genocide.
What's the general that was killed again? What's his name?
Rafat, but he wasn't. He was an author and a poet.
Yeah. So Rafat was. They went after him for a tweet that he put out about the burning of babies in ovens, and that where they coated with baking powder again because it was so absurd. There was no proof that any of that had happened.
He was mocking it because it is ridiculous.
And of course, Barry Weiss, who's one of the biggest Zionist nut jobs out there, decided that she was going to have him targeted, which he was.
And his whole family.
And of course, they were killed.
And
so now, as far as I'm concerned, Barry Weiss could technically, you could bring, accessory to murder charges against her, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they'll just claim he was collateral damage in their search for Hamas.
Of course, that's what they'll say. But you know what? Just for her to have to face the music would be pretty amazing.
And I got to tell you, there's no way I would sit in front of any of these hearings and allow them to state as facts things that I know are not facts. I don't care what the IDF says. I don't care about anything Israel's. I will not. You know how you know Israel's lying? Their lips are moving. That's how you know Israel is lying. And as someone who was lied to by Israel, the state of Israel, by Zionists and brainwashed and continually lied to for better part of 40-something years, as long as I was willing to eat their crap, I can tell you they lie. So when they say that when Joe Biden doesn't want to believe the Hamas, the Gaza Ministry of Health, or whoever's doing that because he doesn't believe them, Well, I don't know about them one way or another, but they're not the ones that brainwashed me and lied to me for 40 years. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say that the liars are the people that lie. So that's what I find. And so when they're using this information in these hearings, it's lies, and nobody seems to question it.
And Mark Levin, who's one of the biggest scumbags out of all of conservative media, is somebody who has said, and I quote, no Palestinian is innocent. So basically saying that everybody who's a Palestinian is
well, but if you've been listening to Netanyahu and his goons, they've been saying that the whole time. There's not even secret language. Yeah, it's not even like Pizzagate where somebody's ordering pizzas. They're literally saying these are human animals.
But they know better. They know better. They do. They're just, but again, it's all about money and power, baby. Here we go.
Jewish. You're what I call a righteous Gentile. And in this context, I ask you this question. If it wasn't Jewish students, if it was some other minority group, do you believe the president of Harvard, who you questioned and who was outrageous, do you believe she would have sat there and said, we need acts, it depends on the context, this, that, and the other?
There is no question, Mark, that had any other group, any other minority group be put in that question, they would have answered it very differently without any hesitation. They would have said, yes, of course it violates the code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment. And that itself is telling. So this anti-Semitism is inexcusable, but it needs to be rooted out at its core in these ivory towers. It has poisoned the ivory towers and higher education broadly.
There's so many better things to watch.
You complain too much.
I complain because I don't want to watch Fox News. It's toxic.
It's important to know exactly what type of propaganda they're going to be throwing out at people. And basically it's the old, everybody's an anti-Semite, everybody's a racist.
Oh, they wouldn't have done that if it was another group. Of course they would have. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you friggin' kidding me? I am so tired of Jews playing the victim card. I am so tired of it. Guess what, Jews? There's people that don't like us. They don't like us. And they're going to say it, and they're going to march about it. Get over it. Okay? Hiding them and stifling them does not make them go away.
And you haven't done yourselves any favors, because now people really get to see what this is all about. How the Jewish elites basically strong arm every major financial institution in this country to get them to do what they want.
I'm just not going to fall in line, and I refuse to be gaslit.
And that's where.
Oh, and I want to go back to one thing she said, because, that he said.
That Mr. Levin.
Whoever that is.
Mark Levin.
He used the phrase righteous Gentile. Okay. And I want to do you know what that is?
All I know is that there are people like Mark Levin who, again, those people in the Jewish community who see themselves as the chosen.
No, that's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. Again, stop saying that. No, I don't know Jews that walk around thinking that. But when you say righteous Gentile, the term, what it connotates, right, were Gentile people during the Holocaust that hid, harbored, and helped save Jews. Those were what we call righteous Gentiles. In fact, at places like Holocaust memorials, at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, there's like entire rooms and tributes to the righteous Gentiles. And that's a phrase that denotes that somebody kind of put their life on the line to help Jews. And he used that for her, calling out a university president for not censoring their student body. That makes her a righteous Gentile. So that puts her in the same category as, like, I don't know, the people that harbored Anne Frank. And I don't know, you call her a righteous Gentile. What kind of that is what I call a very nebbishy thing to do. You're playing your Jew card. It's very unappealing to everybody else. It's helping to perpetuate the anti-Semitism. It's not stopping it.
No, it's not stopping it.
It's making it worse. And people like Debbie, to me, it's like she should be the poster child for anti-Semitism. I can't imagine anybody ever anywhere meeting her, watching her, anything, and then not coming away from that. And if that's your only perception of Jews and being like, oh, hell no. So, it's interesting to me that she's calling everybody anti-Semitic while simultaneously probably creating more anti-Semites than the world has ever known.
Well, the problem, of course, with Debbie is that she just will not go away from the spotlight if she senses an opportunity to.
Well, she loves the Jew card and she loves the breast cancer survivor card. Those are her two cards.
And the gun.
Well, she's anti-gun, but, again, that's just a give me for her.
The fact is, if you look around at all of the people that are the loudest about this particular issue, what you'll discover is that it's extreme right-wing conservatism that is really the loudest voices in the room.
And Debbie.
And Debbie feels right at home with it.
Well, that's what people don't realize. And we were recently at an event where I said, yeah, she's kind of like a Republican. And the people are like, not really. And I'm like, no, really. She affiliates with them. She loves to call things like, oh, you're Republican. What did she just say? Republican backed
the right wings.
Right-wing darling or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you call someone who is part of ALEC? What do you call someone who takes money from the same donors that all the Republicans take?
How about being the woman in Congress who takes the most money from AIPAC?
Right. And the highest Democrat. Hakeem Jeffries.
No, she's number 3.
Oh, okay.
She's behind Josh Gottheimer, not a surprise.
Also gross.
And some gentleman who's been in Congress longer than she has out in Illinois.
Okay.
So,
but it's like, it's so interesting to me. And those are very right-wing Republican things that she's affiliated with. And it's so interesting the way that she plays the Democrat card, but yet she does all these Republican things. She'll play this like anti-Semitism card while stoking anti-Semitism. It's really, it's almost like a masterclass in psychopathy.
What is the point of having the UN if you can't actually have a vote and other nations have a say in whether or not this genocide continues?
Well, what's the point of having a Democratic Party primary when they can do whatever they want anyway?
And one thing that hasn't been brought up about the fact that the Democratic Party of Florida, because it's the Republican Party of Florida
and it's the Florida Democratic Party.
Because they have to distinguish themselves in the most obscure way possible. One thing that doesn't get talked about is that in Florida, we have elections at various times of the year. One of the times of the year where we have our local municipal elections is actually in March. That's when we have them.
Yep.
And so by canceling the primary, you are now screwing over a lot of local candidates that are trying to run for office and catch that electoral wave. So now even less people are going to come out to the polls because there's, what do we have to vote for? Nothing.
But see, that just shows how they don't care.
And not only do they not care, but ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, and this is the key, because unlike the Democratic Party, which is apparently only having a primary to start in South Carolina and not Iowa and New Hampshire.
They're just ignoring New Hampshire's primary.
Well, guess who actually is having a primary in Iowa and New Hampshire? And guess who's having a primary in March in Florida? The grand old party is having their primary. So what does that mean?
Their people are going to come out and vote, and they're going to make every local office here flip.
Almost incredibly. And so I will not say this now because I have to say it. Okay, for you, Nikki Fried, for you, Phil Jerez, for you, Nikki Barnes, I hope you see this because more and more people are going to know about this. You cannot lie your way through a salary of a job. You can't do it. Eventually, enough people are going to see what you're doing. You're not helping anybody. You may be helping yourself. I know that's something you're doing.
Well, the truth is they're following orders from higher command.
At some point, one of you has to say, and at some point, one of you has to say, I can't do this anymore. I cannot lie like this.
I think that
once you start lying one way, you lie about everything.
But the reality is, so then when they try to fundraise in a few years and they cannot figure out.
Why isn't anybody but the rich corporate donors offering to give us money?
And they are really risking turning over a lot of local municipalities. And even though there are a lot of those that are nonpartisan, as they should be, they do run the risk of losing any sort of control over having their voice in those positions.
Because what you have to remember, and if anybody has ever been at any of these local events, you have these groups, whether it's a liberal group, if you have a very good progressive candidate who's running for office, even if they're in the Democratic Party, you might have the DSA support them in some capacity. You might have the Sunrise Movement support them in some capacity, or Climate Defiance, which is, again, doing an amazing job. That helps. But on the GOP side, if you have a candidate that's running for office who's running in a nonpartisan race, but they know that he's pro-Trump or whatever,
they'll vote for him.
They'll vote for him, and they'll have a lot of groups out there aggressively campaigning on their behalf.
They will.
What the Florida Democratic Party is doing is ensuring electoral sabotage in the state.
They're ensuring that they have less power, less and less power. But they did that anyway with the last election, that they failed to put up people for, viable seats.
And so what you end up doing as a ripple effect is that when Florida basically is a non-competitive state and will just go by way of the GOP, that gives the GOP more incentive to put campaign money into states like Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. It makes it that much easier for them to put their chess pieces on the board and easier to win.
So by taking Florida out of the equation, you make it easier for them everywhere else.
And yet all the GOP is doing—
They just don't see it.
Excuse me. And yet all the Democratic Party is doing, and I'm not kidding, this is the only thing that I came across in terms of news right now. You have people that are so stupid that think that the only way that they're going to be able to win is if Donald Trump is behind bars.
Yeah.
If you think that
that's all they're doing,
if that's all that matters to you, this is no different than basically saying we're going to register voters and we care about the Second Amendment. If that's all you care about, then stop wondering why. It's a deliberate— there has been a deliberate effort for the better part of 8+ years that under no circumstances will we allow— not necessarily Bernie Sanders, because we'll get to him in a minute, and that's where we'll close for today. The entire Bernie movement has basically been completely squashed and sabotaged by the Democratic Party as a whole. And if that means that they have to systematically destroy their own party infrastructure in the process to avoid a social democratic takeover of their party, that's
because they'd prefer Trump. They'd prefer Trump to a progressive, so that's the real problem. We know that. They proved that to us in 2016. They proved it.
This is where things get very, very sad. Unfortunately, get very, very sad, because the left is very nomadic right now. Don't have a leadership, leaders for that matter. And
it has no compass.
We don't have one. And when the senator from Vermont makes statements like this,
I'm so sad.
It makes things pretty hopeless.
In terms of a permanent ceasefire, I don't know how you could have a permanent ceasefire with Hamas, who has said before October 7th and after October 7th that they want to destroy Israel. They want a permanent war. I don't know how you have a permanent ceasefire with an attitude like that.
Oh, Bernie. Oh my God! It's like he's reading the AIPAC talking point book. Like he's reading the AIPAC handbook. They don't want that, Bernie. They don't want that. That's not what they want. They came to take the hostages so that they can negotiate and get their people who are being unlawfully detained. That was the whole point of it. And the whole events that happened on October 7th, and the information's been trickling in slowly but surely. Guys, watch what Max Blumenthal put out about it, because the whole story is not what we think is the story. It never is. And a lot of the civilian death and a lot of the death to the innocent people was done by Israel. But we'll see more and more of that. But the fact that Bernie is sitting there and actually putting the blame on Hamas as if he doesn't know the whole backstory is so insulting to me, because there's no way that he actually believes that. There's no way how can he believe that? So in other words, he has to come up with a way to justify not calling for a ceasefire. And the only way to do that is to put the blame on Hamas. So in other words, the concept of collective punishment, which is a complete violation of the Geneva Convention and all other forms of international law. And that has no bearing in this discussion. So whether or not they're trying to get Hamas is actually irrelevant to what they're doing. Those are two totally different things. They're participating and putting forth not just a genocide, but it is a violation as collective punishment. You're not allowed to do that.
And look, Bernie,
I'm so sad about him.
And I can't even joke about it. Like I can't put the
this is pathetic.
This is almost like a hostage video. That's what it looked like.
Like, is he just gone? Like, is he just like the shell of the person that he was in 2016? Like,
the argument that a few people have been making is a similar argument to why Elizabeth Warren is so terrible on this issue as well, is because the military-industrial complex has got their hooks in almost, if not every state in the country in terms of jobs. So the idea that, you know, there's a number of military jobs in the state of
Imagine if they had public works jobs.
Vermont. By having those jobs in the state of Vermont, they've now made it basically impossible to speak out against them, similar to Massachusetts and speaking out against them there. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. But as you said, our business is war. Like, that's what we do.
It's the only thing we do.
Yeah. We don't produce anything here that's worth talking about.
No, just
now,
weapons.
Oh, they passed the CHIPS Act, and now they're going to make some, you know, they're going to make, you know, different type of transistors here and things like that. All right, that's great. That's not solving the problem. Do you know how many different jobs you have to account for in this country? There are not a lot of mechanical engineers. There are not a lot of computer, there's not software engineers. That is from a very select portion of the population that can work in those types of jobs. There are tons of other opportunities here in this country.
Federal jobs guaranteed.
Federal jobs guaranteed. You're building a high-speed rail from Los Angeles
But
to
that's
Las
not
Vegas.
how it'll go. Well, that's what we were talking about when we opened the show.
You need to be building a high-speed rail across Interstate 80 and Interstate 10. You need to build a high-speed rail from Los Angeles to Atlanta. You need to build a high-speed rail from New York to San Francisco.
Yes.
You're talking about building a high-speed rail from LA to Las Vegas for 200 miles? That's what you're cooped up about?
And for what group of people? That's just serving Las Vegas.
Or that is serving the high rollers of the Los Angeles coastline that can afford to travel out to Vegas, have their fun, and then come back.
Well, it just helps Vegas. It helps Vegas tourism. That's all that does. Which is interesting that that's where California wants to invest their money, in a city that isn't even in their state. Because it's not going to really help the people in California. It's not going to help working people in California to be able to get to Vegas faster. How does that help them?
This is the type of lunacy that unfortunately we have to deal with on a regular basis.
What does he say? My tilt toward Hamas? I don't have a tilt toward Hamas.
It's not even worth addressing. What are you talking about? Tilt toward Hamas? Why? Because Israel is committing a genocide. End of discussion. No gray area. Nothing. Don't want to hear it. Ed Cohen. Don't want to hear it.
Not really. No.
You don't like it? Too bad. It's reality.
It doesn't mean I like Hamas, but that doesn't mean that I think it's okay to kill a whole bunch of innocent people either.
Correct.
Okay, see, that's
the
problem.
By killing what is now probably somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 children are dead. How many terror cells for Hamas, Hezbollah, or God knows who else, has now been created as a result? But you're going to kill
the world.
But you're going to kill Hamas. You're going to kill Hamas. You're going to eliminate Hamas. Yeah, that's happening.
Listen to myself. I do. It's taken me so many years of like really properly educating myself to get to this point. I suggest you do the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and again, we're still talking about Jews that don't acknowledge there ever was a Nakba.
You can't build your moats wide enough. You can't build your walls high enough. You just can't. I know you think you can, and I know you think that you remember. What's the saying? Everybody's blind. You can't. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
It's that,
and that's what's going to happen. But there is no eye for an eye here. You know, Mr. Ed Cohen. I wonder if you happen to know that Netanyahu's government has been funding Hamas for decades.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
They picked them. They put them there.
Yeah. Did you know that? Oh,
and
if you don't believe, no, if you who gives a fuck?
Well, I can tell you why. The reason why is because they specifically didn't want it to be with the PLO, because then that would create a connection between the West Bank and Gaza, and therefore lend more itself towards having a Palestinian state.
And if that's not enough for you, there is actual audio recording of Netanyahu saying as much. So why don't you look that up, and then you'll know. You know, we're not trying to be rude. We're not trying to be condescending.
But Hamas, I'm not a cheerleader for Hamas.
To wake you up.
But I would suggest, Ed, that if you were born in a concentration camp and raised in a concentration camp where you only had power certain times a day and they gave you however much water you barely needed to get by, you might be angry. You might want to, rise up against your captors and your oppressors. You might want to do that. So what I would suggest is that the bulk of the Hamas terrorists have been created as a result of being born in a concentration camp. And that is why it makes it very hard for me to condemn the concept of revolution. I do not agree with killing innocent people. I do not agree that non-combatants should ever be, harmed. I don't agree. That's not something I'm into, right? But I understand feeling just so enraged. And by the way, everybody forgets that the Palestinians have tried every other peaceful means, and the United States and people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz shut it down every time. Because when you pass laws that say in this country that BDS can cost you a job, and your participation in boycotting the state of Israel means that you're not going to get a contract with this municipality. So you're literally putting down non-violent means of resistance. Also, I would suggest to look up the amount of times Palestine has gone before things like the International Criminal Court and the United Nations begging for help in their situation. And at every turn, there's the US saying, nope, just like we just vetoed that. So while I do not condone violence, I would suggest that if you take away every other means of resistance, that is what people will resort to. That's all I'm suggesting.
You're going
Take
to
that for whatever it's worth.
You're going to create greater levels of anti-Semitism, which is happening, which is why the Jewish billionaire class, as I mentioned, is being exposed. And you're not helping. You're not helping whatever cause you think you're helping.
No.
You think you can stop anti-Semitism by doing this? This is not how you stop it.
No.
You stop it. You can't stop it, but you can significantly reduce it. Step one, end the occupation. Unite the nation. Unite Palestinians and Israelis. Believe me, they would like to be united despite what the corporate media would have.
Well, the indigenous Jewish population.
Mr. Ed Cohen, did you know that there are trillions upon trillions of dollars in natural gas resources in Gaza? Did you know that? You probably didn't know that one.
Well, I just think that there's this whole history, and us Jewish people that are raised Western, we're not taught it properly.
Correct.
And so
which also is what makes Bernie's response just so gut-wrenching, because he knows better.
He does.
He knows better. He's not a fool. He knows all about, again, for a guy who fancied himself as a socialist, and he probably still is for all intents and purposes, but he is institutionalized across the board. He feels that he has to do this, even though he is supporting a failed president.
It's bad.
Thinking that this is by some measure going to protect from Donald Trump getting back in the White House. Let me tell you something. I don't know if Donald Trump would be worse than Joe Biden. Maybe he wouldn't even be better. But you know what I do know? I know that Donald Trump is not at the level of being full of shit at the level that somebody like Joe Biden's administration is. Now you say, oh, that's crazy. Donald Trump lies about everything.
Yes.
But every once in a while, Donald Trump shoots from the hip. And that's when
every once in a while you get a little bit of kernel of truth because he says the quiet part out loud.
We're going in there for the oil. We're going for the oil.
I was so appreciative of that.
And no one would ever dare say such a thing. You've never heard Joe Biden say such a thing. Come on, man.
And again, we have to then clarify, we're not Trump supporters.
No.
I'm not supporting him. He's disgusting.
Of truth, justice,
and the American way.
Correct.
But that's not the American way.
No.
The American way is everything but truth and justice.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We don't have that. It's hard. I can't even say we should live up to our own country standards because we never had them. But I'd like to think that we could maybe, based on that, create some. I mean, I think it's possible. In the amount of people in this country now that recognize the horrors of what we did to the Native Americans on this continent, but yet fail to see the connection to what's going on in Palestine. We really have this cognitive dissonance in terms of like how we can convince ourselves that certain things are okay and other things are not okay. And I did the mental gymnastics for years, and just one day I just couldn't do it anymore. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't work.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So it's okay somehow to screw over the indigenous people there because the people that are screwing them over had also been hurt.
Well, think about the supremacist attitude about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to be stereotypical, but the fact of the matter is Mr. Cohen is stereotypical. He's a 60-some-odd-year-old Jewish man.
And hasn't gone back to bother to learning the truth.
No. It's a very...
The information's available
It's a level
now.
of comfort that's there. And yes, people are scared to find out the truth. which is why so many people were scared of somebody like Trump being president, not because he was a liar, because every freaking politician is. It's because Trump is not a steady ship. He's a very bumpy ship, a ship that might actually go off the rails and tip over, because we have been living a lie as a nation for a very long time.
Some of us are okay with going off of a cliff because we're going there anyway. So it's sort of like the Band-Aid thing.
It is. And rip that Band-Aid off before you literally do collapse completely, because that's where we're heading now.
Yeah.
We are heading to a point of no return, especially for Jewish people in this country. The more that Israel commits a genocide in Gaza, the more anti-Semitism will grow in the United States.
And also, by the way, the Islamophobia is at an all-time high probably as well. And, you know, which, again, it's interesting to me because they're the oppressed in this particular context.
Correct.
So I don't understand that. But yeah, this is not going to go away just by calling everybody anti-Semites and censoring them. That's not how this is going to happen. And I would like to say, when people talk about that you want to destroy Israel, I would like to say that we might want to consider two ways of thinking about that. Because even in this hearing, we're like, oh, you think it's okay to talk about like the destruction of the state of Israel? And I would like to say that, yes, I do think that's okay, because now I'm going to talk about it from the not literal sense, right? But from the geopolitical sense. In a geopolitical context, love you, Frameware. In a geopolitical context, that is what I'm talking about. I am not talking of wiping Jews off the face of the earth. I'm not talking about hurting the people in Israel. But when I say getting rid of the state of Israel, it means that the geopolitical state that exists right now is an apartheid state and an occupation.
1000%, because we have history to look at.
Yeah.
It's not like there aren't examples throughout history, and all too often the examples are just way too glaringly similar.
And it's when pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. And that's where we are in empire right now.
Teresa says, Trail of Tears parallel to Palestine is undeniable.
Absolutely.
Whenever the military expansion grows too large and too fat, then you have what you're having now.
Well, we have a society that spends infinitely more on hurting other people than helping its own people.
So
it doesn't work.
And a very good example of that is when people talk about modern monetary theory and is it even possible because we print our own currency? Well, here's what you need to understand. That's not to say that you can just print endless amounts of money. The problem we have in our country is that we print money and it goes into very few people's hands, which is done on purpose.
Right. No, the only problem is real resources. We've had this. I would suggest anybody go back and look at any of our shows on MMT. We've covered this quite a bit. But yeah, this is to me at a point where I am okay saying that the state of Israel does not need to exist in its current form.
If it does, it's only going to create even more violence and more endless war.
It needs to just be a real democracy from the river to the sea.
So I would ask,
Palestine shall be free. And that includes the Jews there.
And so if anybody is asking, and if you're like looking at what's going on right now, do you really think at this current state, do you know how much worse this is going to get if Turkey or Lebanon gets involved? Do you know how much worse this will be?
See, I don't think you will see Israel get annihilated. You will see Israel. And then the nuclear weapons.
And then we have to get involved.
Because what will happen is Israel will shoot a nuclear weapon off to Iran, and then it'll be game over.
And then Russia gets involved, and then it's World War III. Is that what you want? Because it's very easy to say you're okay with that if you're not the one fighting the war.
Yeah, and the thing is that there was a world that existed before Israel. There's people alive that are older than the state of Israel. And it's okay to conceive of a world after. Countries come and go. What's more important is to properly serve the rights of everybody that's alive right now in that location. And the only way to do that is with a single unified state. And that does mean that Jews don't have a nation state. They don't get to have an ethno state. And quite honestly, nobody should. Because as I've said before, in order to have an ethno state, you need to conduct an ethno cleanse. And that's just how it is. And right now, and as somebody who was used as a tool in Israel's ethnic cleansing, I can tell you that that has been their campaign. They have every intention of taking that whole thing. So when I say get rid of the state of Israel, I don't mean the people or anything like that. I mean the government, where it then goes from being an ethno state to being an actual democratic republic. That's all I'm talking. When I say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free for everyone, including all the Jews there. They get to be free too. It's like nobody's suggesting to genocide them. Nobody's suggesting that. You're projecting your genocidal tendencies onto other people.
The other scary thing is that if you look on social media, and let me tell you something, guys, the overwhelming majority of Israelis that comment on social media, they are psychotic.
Well,
in
it's
their
out of
approach. And
they're genocidal.
And this comes down to free the hostages and we'll stop committing the genocide. It's as if to say, okay, we know what we're doing and we're going to keep doing it because you need to let our hostages go, even though they want to ignore the fact that Israel has killed several of the hostages.
Oh, like 60 of them were probably killed in the original from all of the shit.
No one actually knows how many hostages are still being kept.
No.
And no one wants to look at the grand scheme of things. But what that also proves beyond any doubt is that you value an Israeli life more than everybody else's life.
We know that. They absolutely do. There's not even a doubt in my mind.
And so how do you think that that's going, how do you think other people are going to react? I've always maintained that one of the biggest reasons that the Jewish people have had to deal with endless levels of anti-Semitism for many, many years is because they have projected themselves onto the world as the chosen people.
I don't
I know
agree.
you don't want to hear that.
Because that's not true.
I'm sharing my thought.
Okay, because I know more Catholics that think that than Jews.
Okay. So, be it as it may, if you say that you are the chosen people of Catholics, yes, I grew up.
We don't say that. The Bible said it. And so it gets proselytized that way.
Zionists believe that they are the chosen people.
It's not that. That's not what Zionism is.
I understand. I am simply stating what Zionists project. They do project that they are the chosen people. How do you think people of other cultures are going to react to that?
Well, it's more, and I don't think it's that. I think it's that they just feel entitled to have their own state. And the reason, if people would go back and learn a little bit about Zionism, the reason that Jews actually sought their own state, yes, it was to escape persecution in Europe and Russia, and absolutely it was that. But it was that Jews were considered, to not ever have loyalty to any one nation. They were always considered suspect and sneaky, and they're loyal to themselves, and they have dual loyalty. And the way that in Europe, that the white Ashkenazi Jews sought to have any sort of say or get any sort of respect was to be their own nation. Okay, so that was when they started looking for places to create their Jewish state. And they looked in different places, because I know that there was part in Argentina that was considered at some point. Like, there have been places that were considered. It wasn't automatically going to be in what is Palestine. It wasn't necessarily going to be there. So this is not about them being chosen as much as them wanting to assert themselves and be taken seriously as a people. And that's where it started, because they weren't. So now what you have is you have a bunch of people that are Israelis. And quite honestly, and I say this literally, there is no more entitled group of people than Israelis. They're literally born in a new country that is still persecuting the natives on its own land and feeling completely entitled to do so as a nature, like their birthright to do so, right?
No one is getting over this.
And it's like, it's just so disgusting.
In a head-to-head matchup, Donald Trump right now leads Joe Biden by 10 points in Michigan.
It's over.
The election's over. You're not coming back from that because there's nothing you're going to do. You see, that's not to say that there aren't things that Joe Biden could do to change his fortunes. He's just not going to do that.
At this point, actually, it could be too late. For me, you screwed the workers, you screwed the environment, you screwed the Appalachian people. You screwed over Ukraine.
Oh, I tell you, they really did.
I'm
going to tell you, they really did an amazing job of completely taking healthcare out of the conversation. Like, they really did. Hamas, Mark J., thank you so much.
That's
for $5.
one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Resistors rising out of the world's largest open-air prison are terrorists. Americans resisting British occupation were called patriots. They were also called treasonous.
Yes, they were criminals.
Correct.
And the thing is that I would say that, and absolutely what Hamas did is terroristic. That's an act of terrorism.
So this is what the Democratic establishment is going to throw at people in 2024, which is Project 2025. Here's what I can tell you, Taylor. The biggest impediment with the Democratic Party has always been the fact that they are controlled almost wholly by Wall Street and Silicon Valley. The GOP is controlled by the evangelical right. Project 2025 is basically theocracy. That's the whole point, and that's what they want. So at this point, you're getting what you're getting almost no matter who's in there. So you're basically screwed either way.
Metal, I'm not saying Trump is a shoo-in because there's a long road between here and there, and he and Joe are both very old. And a lot of shit happens.
Do not discount RFK.
Do not discount what we do pretty much agree on is that Biden's done. That's what we're saying. I'm not saying that Trump is necessarily a shoo-in, but as of right now, if the election were right now, that's what it's looking like based on the numbers.
And let's keep another thing in mind, which I think is also important that you cannot neglect here, because a lot of people tend to forget that when you're looking at the other people that are running right now, Dr. Cornel West, Jill Stein, Dr. Jill Stein, and of course you have potentially—
She's actually an MD.
She is. You have First Lady.
The real Dr. Jill.
Sorry, First Lady. And then, of course, whoever's going to be running on the Libertarian ticket, and that's going to be one as well. You see, what may ultimately end up happening, again, the Forward Party, in my opinion, when it all is said and done, I believe that Andrew Yang's Forward Party will endorse RFK for president. I also think that
that'll be a big deal.
If you also look at what's happening with the Green Party right now, that not a lot of people are talking about, is that the Green Party has a very big problem with ballot access. They're only in 18 states right now. Do you really think they're going to double that at a minimum? Remember, in 2016, the Green Party was on the ballot in 48 states.
No, I don't know. They seem pretty confident that they can get on all the ballots.
Well, they seem confident doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
That's true, but the Green Party has, look, they have a track record of doing it. That speaks to that they can do it.
If Dr. West is not able to get on the ballot, what's he going to do? And then the question becomes, where are the voters going to go? In my opinion, again, I could be wrong.
They ain't going to Joe.
They're not going to Joe, and they're most likely not going to Trump. They may go to Trump before they go to Joe, but I'm telling you right now, if RFK's on that ballot,
they're going to
you
him.
Can say whatever you want right now about RFK. If it's between him, Joe, and Trump, they're going to RFK. It's going to happen because he's got money, he's got name, and he has a lot of ideas that I happen to agree with. I have ideas that I don't agree with.
Yeah,
but when he talks about the issue of the economy, specifically as it pertains to people's ability to actually build wealth in this country because of the broken capitalist system, where mega giants that are private equity firms, all these major conglomerates are able to buy up every piece of real estate so that basically we have a service class across the board. He is the only person across any political spectrum that is talking about this right now. And that will play. It won't play right now, but you wind the clock 10 months from now, that is going to be a big deal.
I think that RFK is definitely a contender in that. Because
so when they're all
I will tell you, if I was looking at the three of them, and that was it. And Dr. West wasn't on the ballot. And because, I am a Dr. West supporter. But if I'm looking at Joe and Trump and RFK, I'm voting for Bobby.
And I think most people are going to feel that way once they get to that point. Now,
and there are many things about him I don't like.
But at some point, you have to say that RFK is the 2016 Trump. There is this, the system is going, people are demanding change. They are. You can hold it off for as long as you think you can. But even the richest, most powerful people in history, we've had times like this before. And eventually, if the Roman Empire can fall, if Genghis Khan can fall, if Napoleon Bonaparte can fall, anybody can fall. And they will.
Oh, and the hubris in this country is so off the charts.
They really believe. There are people who believe. It's not going to happen to us.
No, it can't happen.
Like, we'll figure it out.
And more importantly, the amount of people, and I've even seen like Debbie saying shit like this, that if you reelect Trump, it'll end the democracy. Our democracy ended a long time ago when people like you started suckling off the corporate teat. That was the end of the democracy.
Wasserman Schultz was able to get away with what she got away with in 2016, and there was no consequences for it whatsoever. Nothing.
And she says he's going to cause the end of democracy.
If you are questioning why people have lost faith in the system, it's pretty easy to see why, which is why even the people that have been coming after Jen, who are older Jewish, more affluent, comfortable, whatever you want to call it, that are angry that one is going against the narrative of corporate power. Remember, the people that live the most comfortable are usually the ones who are most content to just, ingest whatever corporate talking points are being fed to them. But eventually, even they start to look around and say, this doesn't really make any sense.
I mean,
how desperate do you
I know they're going to come after me because they're scared They're scared. They're scared because they truly believe that the Arabs want to kill them, and if there is no Israel, they won't be safe. They really do believe that. We've been very brainwashed, so
White
they're very
people
scared.
there's a lot of white people in society who feel that the black community is going to kill them
Yes.
if they ever
Well, it's the same. Yeah. Well, that did happen.
Why
That was the
would you
whole
ever-
white flight.
But then the question becomes, why would you ever have such a rational fear of that level? Unless, of course, you've been doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing.
Well, and that's what I mean. Obviously, they're like when you are saying that you think they're trying to genocide the Jews, but yet you're genociding them. How does that not look like just a projection to everybody?
Metal, if you want to know what we think of Alex Jones, go to the beginning of the live stream.
We never agreed to deplatform him.
And one thing, we're civil libertarians.
Yeah,
100%. So one thing I would ask each and every one of you to do, and we see some new names on here, guys. Unfortunately, we got stood up today.
It happens.
It happens. It's happened quite a few times.
We're
This is
small.
not the first. It's not going to be the last.
And we're always live.
We're always live.
So, when you see clips and people have people on interviews, who knows how many times they tried to schedule something before it actually happens.
Our friends Keaton and Russell over at Due Dissonance, yeah, they're much bigger than we are now, and they did not get stood up by Matt. So he decided that platform, I guess, was big enough for him.
Is that where he is now?
That's where he was. That's where he was like a week ago.
Oh, that's
but now,
But who knows what? Whatever. I'm sure something came up. Matt has no malicious intent.
Yes.
And he is. I'm not worried about it. We'll connect with him at some point.
We will. And for those of you who are tuning in, remember, smash the like button, share and subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. Another thing that we are going to ask each and every one of you to do. You don't like my music? Travers, Asmuth, Teresa, Metalopoly, Sable, Mark J.
All of our people.
All of our wonderful people. Here's what we're asking you to do. As soon as this live stream ends, Taylor Coles, as soon as this is over, please go to the YouTube page where this video is officially logged and make a comment and make sure that you've hit the like button. And whatever you're going to say, great live stream today, we really love the show, etc., etc. If all 40 of you go there and make a compliment my hair, I just got a haircut. Somebody like Teresa noticed that and chipped in she knew that it was expensive. It was a little pricey, but chipped in $20 today to make me feel less guilty about having to, groom myself every once in a while. I shower. I just don't get to cut my hair as often. Hopefully soon with my career, things will ultimately change for the better. But nevertheless, if you can go there and make a comment, it's going to help boost the algorithm. It's going to help our channel get seen by more people. That is going to help.
It won't be seen by me. And if anybody ever wants to communicate with me, you need to be a Patreon.
Patreon.
Patron on Patreon.
Stupid, but noble.
You have to be a patron on Patreon. And then that is the way to communicate with me.
Tom, good to see you. I don't know exactly what that means as far as supporter stream go belly up, but we're glad you're here. And
I don't know what that means. Keaton and Russell are definitely, well.
Listen, we'll reveal it now. Keaton and Russell, they are friends of the show. They will be here for Festivus on Saturday,
December 23rd, having our Festivus. It's a Festivus for the rest of us.
It is.
And we have a bunch of cool people coming on, including Keaton and Russell. And Ron Placone, I think, is going to be here. Yes?
Ron Placone will be here.
He's always fun at Festivus. India Walton.
Max Alvarez will be here. India Walton will be here. Steve Grumbine will be here.
We're going to have a nice ensemble Festivus airing of grievances, guys. And you know what? We need to have people super chat their grievances.
Harvey K will be here.
Harvey K will be here.
Excuse me, Larry David will be here. We're going to have a nice group of people for that. Thank you,
actually, you know what? Actually, Luke Rakowski is totally happy to come on this show. The only downside of that is he's got way more subs. It makes so much more sense to go on with them.
Yes, but what ends up happening, and Colin taught us this, is that if Luke is going to come on our show, he just needs to post a link on his channel to let him know that he's coming on with us, and a lot of his people can ultimately come.
I'd love to have Luke, and he will. Actually, he's in the process right now of moving locally. He's doing a local move, but once he's all settled, he's more than happy to come on. And Ian and I get along marvelously. So it's like you say that like somehow it's so hard for me to break bread with them. It really isn't. They really like them. We agree about a lot of things. I like those guys. I don't have a problem with them.
So despite the fact we didn't have our big name guest come on today.
Yeah, we love
I'm
Max.
sure we will ultimately do our best to reconvene and make it so.
Yes.
We may have a big streamer on Thursday. I'm not going to say who, but we'll keep you posted on that. State Representative Angie Nixon, we are going to schedule her for next week. You will definitely want to hear what she has to say. She is the one state House representative in Florida who had the audacity to stand up on the House floor in Tallahassee and say that Israel's committing a genocide in Gaza. And now she has a primary challenger as a result of that. See how that works? Even state House reps are not immune to this shit.
Which is amazing, because it's completely outside of the realm of anything she has any power or control over. So it's just a matter of her stating her opinion.
Maybe AIPAC will stretch themselves too thin.
Well, that's the thing. Look, they've allocated $100 million. They're going to really be focused on getting rid of the squad.
Imagine if you had 100 candidates around the country saying that Israel's committing a genocide and it has to end. They're going to go after everybody.
Matt Taibbi was supposed to be on here. Something happened. He didn't show up. It happens sometimes. We'll get in touch. He'll come another time. And we said Max Alvarez will be one of the people joining us for Festivus, because Max also has a good plethora of grievances.
Oh, he does.
He's got Max Alvarez can speak the grievances of the working people on our show.
We can say it. We can say it now. Katie Halper cannot make it. She would have loved to have been here, but it is the holiday weekend.
It is. It's Saturday the 23rd, so not everybody's available.
So not everybody's going to be able to make it. We're going to try to drag our good friend Jordan Cheriton to come on, even for a little while, even though he says he's going to be on Long Island.
Did you invite Margaret?
I did. She can't make it either.
Okay. Well, it's holiday weekend. That's what it is. So we get what we get.
Listen, our friends.
Oh, we've got great people.
Listen, Matt and Dave over at Left Reckoning, they are going to be coming back on the podcast soon. They cannot make it for Festivus. So
I love Left Reckoning.
Yes. Good
guys. I love
the
Left Reckoning.
They're very good guys.
Do you know what that show was? Do you know what that transitioned from?
No.
Do you don't know? That was Michael Brooks' show.
Oh,
the Left Reckoning was the platform that transitioned from Michaal Brooks' show. And that's why that will always have a very special place in my heart, that show, because that's the basis. Michael Brooks.
It always
awesome,
it always warms Jen's heart to know that we were trying to set up a chat with Mr. Brooks.
I never got to meet him.
No, but he did think very hard.
That makes me smile. But I always, Michael Brooks was the shit.
He was.
He was the shit. And I really liked him. Like, I had watched him for a long time before I was watching him more than I was watching Sam Cedar when he was on with Sam Cedar.
And Colanello, this is without question one of the biggest issues that Jewish people are now going to have to deal with, because the Israeli lobby, led by ADL, AIPAC, and DMFI,
Jonathan Grossblatt,
they are going to make it so much more difficult for Jewish people in the United States in particular to live normal lives. Remember, there's a significant portion of the Hasidic community that wants no part of this shit.
Well, yes, because it actually violates Judaism. Zionism is a complete violation of Judaism.
But people that are Hasidic are now going to be targeted. Why? Because they are obviously Jewish.
And they are, and yet, ironically, a lot of them are against the state of Israel. Yeah, you know what, guys? What I would like to say, like what Colanello is saying is very true. Right now, we are seeing a bombardment of propaganda and censorship. And they are really, really, really doing all this to justify this genocide. That's really what it's all about. They're going to say, oh, well, all these rapes and Hamas and you're an anti-Semite and all of that. It's all just covering it. What I would love everybody to do, and even if you're not Jewish, and even if you're talking to a Jew, I want people, when somebody tells you that, I want you to just say, I completely reject that. They are absolutely not the same thing. Call people on it. Do not let people get away with this. The fact that our Congress just signed a resolution saying that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism is the kind of shit that keeps me up at night.
And let me tell you, if you guys,
that is scary.
And let me tell you, if you guys do not follow our Facebook page in particular, YouTube also has a few, Instagram has a few of them as well. But if you look on the Facebook page, the criticisms, the vulgarity.
Oh, I'm getting vulgarity?
The Israeli, you're not a real Jew, Jen. You turn in your Jew card, do all these things. And the truth of the matter is, to every one of you Israelis, she's more of a Jew than you'll ever be.
Well, what's so interesting is that if you knew anything
about the Talmud,
if you knew anything, Zionism is actually against Judaism.
Of course it is.
It really is. It has nothing to do with Judaism. Zionism is a white settler colonial state that is an arm of empire. And that's all it ever has been. And it used the Jews to create that. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with Jews.
The whole point of protest metal is that it disrupts. That's the point.
Right. If it was nice and convenient, it wouldn't do anything. It is supposed to disrupt traffic. But you know what? If you're sitting in a traffic jam and you don't like that it's being disrupted by those people, I want you to think in your mind, I wonder what it's like on the streets in Gaza right now.
Yeah.
I wonder what the people are like doing in Gaza right now when they're digging their families out of rubble and you don't like being inconvenienced in traffic.
One of the worst things that Hillary Clinton ever said when she was in the political arena as a highly sought after figure was this idea that she ran under sniper fire. Let me tell you something. If the average American had to deal with sniper fire, you'd shit your britches.
Okay, and here's the other thing. Going after normal Jewish college students. Let me explain something. The more that they do this, the more they're going to come after the Jewish college students because you are affiliating them with a genocide.
Correct.
So you, when you affiliate Jews with genocide, are hanging targets on their heads. And by the way, attention to the Jews again. People don't like us. They're not going to always like us. Some of them are going to hate us. Some of them are going to want to say really mean things to you. Grow the fuck up and get over it because you're not pulling your family out of rubble on a daily basis.
I would say the same thing when it comes to Black people. To the Black community, there will always be people that hate you, that think you are subhuman, you are not as intelligent, etc., blah, 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 blah. Same thing with Asian people. You're not masculine enough. You're not strong enough. You're too blah. Whatever. Who gives a shit? Just affiliate with people that will bring out the best in you, not the worst in you.
Not a genocide.
No.
And you know, I do feel bad that there are Jewish students that are getting a little bit, I get provoked because so far I haven't heard of anything other than that. So far, I'm just saying, I have not heard of anything again. I mean, there were threats at at school. There were threats at a school at, I want to say it was Cornell. They handled the situation. They apprehended the person. But what I'm hearing are people showing up at Hanukkah lighting ceremonies at a festivity and reminding everybody, still a genocide going on. That is a healthy resistance disruption. That is not mean to the normal Jews.
You know, and like you said, they don't like it because they know it's the truth.
Yeah.
This is not a question. Remember, when the truth is on your side, you don't have to get angry. This is part of the reason why the Palestinians...
Although I do feel angry. Like I'm at a level of rage that I have never felt before.
But
like
this is also one of the biggest reasons above any other that if you can see the sheer humanity of the Palestinian people and how they are handling this, it has to do above all other reasons because they know that they're right. There are Bible stories, countless Bible stories. Again, I'm not religious and never would be, but I happen to know the Old Testament and the New Testament. And what I do know is that there are always stories about not retribution, but what would be the best way to put it? Well, I mean, even retribution can be a word that can be used to describe redemption. Redemption is a common theme in the Bible. And the reason that is a common theme, and part of the reason why Jesus' story is so powerful, is because he knew he was right, not because he couldn't withstand the treatment of the Roman Empire. And again, even if it's a fable, let it be.
Okay.
But my point is, if you're going to try to hurt somebody who knows that they're on the right side of humanity and the right side of history, they don't have to get vitriolic and angry and point the finger at you. The Romans did it. The British Empire did it. Genghis Khan did it. The Israelis are doing it now because they know that they're wrong. Yeah. They know what they're doing is wrong, and they can't deny what they're doing is wrong.
Regular American Jews have nothing to do with Israel. Incorrect. We all have something to do with Israel. It's a satellite country, and American Jews are every bit as much responsible. This is happening on our watch. We are all collectively responsible for what's happening. So we do. And the more that people keep saying that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, you're just going to keep conflating those things more and more.
Correct.
And it isn't about harassing people to get them to do what you want. I mean, it is. But what you're calling harassment is lawful, legitimate protest. And the kind of people that want to get rid of that should really move to a place like, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or something like that. Go move to a theocratic state.
And Schultz, you're right.
I know.
Mikey did leave a big hole on the left, and that is kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, so Ed Schultz too. So, I got to talk to Ed Schultz once. I called in his radio show on Air America, and I actually got picked once, and I got to talk with Ed Schultz. It was really cool.
Guys, we can't thank you enough. Your support means everything. Make sure to smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those wonderful things. Big shout out. Oh, and Firmware, didn't even realize you donated.
Yeah, I saw him.
In 1900, Palestine was about 90% Arab, 10% Zionist. In 1947, that's right, 56-44. In 67, 78-22. Today, 85-15. And let's be honest, now it's pretty much 100-0. So,
well, the people that have rights are 100-0. You can be Palestinian in the state of Israel, but you don't have the same rights. You have different ID. You have different license plates.
I would love to get Dave Smith on the show. Did you see that clip that I sent
Yeah.
you? Okay. So Dave Smith is somebody that a lot of people want. Again, the likes of Luke Rakowski, Tim Pool, Ian Crossland. They would love to see Dave Smith run for president on the Libertarian Party ticket. He has been spot on about this issue. And Dave Smith, I didn't happen to know, was actually Jewish. And if you listen to the clip.
There are Jewish Smiths. I knew Jewish Smiths.
Sure. So he was just on a long form interview with Joe Rogan. And there was a great clip about him talking about the whole, the whole history of this particular situation in Palestine.
Yeah.
And learning that.
People need to learn it.
They do.
And that's the problem, is people want to talk about it.
Ray, I didn't forget about your brother. I think that the Dallas
Miami has Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, because we're the Miami Dolphins. Okay, was that not the answer that we wanted? That was my thought. That's okay.
The Dolphins, if the Dolphins win at least 4 of their next 5 games, they will be at least the number 2 seed in the AFC. And that's pretty significant, which guarantees them, should they win, at least 2 home playoff games.
Oh, we're going to win tonight.
That's a pretty big deal.
We're winning tonight.
That's a pretty big deal.
We're winning tonight.
The New York Giants, I hope, decide not to try to win another game. They are playing the Packers tonight, which unfortunately sucks because the Detroit Lions, unfortunately, are a little bit of a funk right now, and they may be falling off. I do believe, Ray, that the Dallas Cowboys definitely have an excellent shot at being the number 1 seed.
I think it's going to be Philadelphia.
But the Philly's now down to the 5th
Wait,
seed.
how did that happen?
Because Dallas beat Philly last night. Philly's lost 2 in a row now.
This is what happens.
And so
I'm never up to date.
I would say it's hard to say, because one thing about the NFL, it is extremely competitive. Now, granted, it's usually going to come down to who is the best performing quarterback on both sides.
Oh, Schultz, it's a good cheer. That's our song. That's the Miami Dolphins theme song. And even though the Houston Oilers stole it and said that we stole it, and now they cease to exist. And so there you go.
I definitely agree that it is the Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles that are battling for the number 1 seed. I think the Niners are, it's hard to say. I mean, the Niners, in my opinion, have the best team top to bottom. I think their defense as a stalwart is tougher than the Cowboys, although the Cowboys are better at takeaways. And of course, that was exhibited last night. I think the Eagles are still a really, really good football team, but I think they're having a little bit of a,
Do they have some injuries and stuff that they're dealing with?
They have a couple here and there, but nothing significant. Their offensive line is intact. Jalen Hurts is fine. Their 2 best receivers are fine. The fact of the matter is, what ends up happening, bless you, even though this is something that's a little bit less commonplace in what you would consider a season that, up until recently, the Eagles were 10-1, but they were kind of smoke and mirrors in a lot of ways. And now that they've lost 2 in a row and they are down to the 5th seed, this is what you call the Super Bowl hangover. This is what happens to a team, especially a team that was favored to win it all last year and were within an inch of winning it and lost at the last second to the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, now you're seeing the Super Bowl hangover.
Well,
because now
that was ugly yesterday.
Yeah, now they have to come all the way back. Now they have to count on winning all of their games and having the 49ers lose at least 1, if not 2 games in order for them to climb back up again.
I really liked watching them lose. I know that sounds horrible.
No, it's going to be tough.
But Kansas City losing is good for me.
I think that the only there really isn't anything in the NFC that suggests that there really is going to be an opportunity outside of the Eagles, Cowboys, and the Niners to go to the Super Bowl.
Who do we have a problem with? The Ravens.
The AFC is basically, you've got the Ravens at the top, and I think they're a very, very good team, as demonstrated yesterday. However, the Dolphins can go on a heater. There's no question their offense is that good, and they do make timely defensive stops. I think that the Buffalo Bills could sneak in as the 7th seed, and I think they would be dangerous if they get in, including dangerous to the Dolphins, because that would be a 2-7 matchup. In addition to that, there are other teams that are also having years that
we're not losing to the Bills again.
Yep. Kansas City Chiefs are still the champs, and they're going to get in. They're going to be a dangerous team. As far as any other, one of my favorites, no, Die Eagles Die is what I like to say.
That's horrible.
I know. It's what it is.
Again,
Cry Eagles Cry is probably a little bit more appropriate.
I don't know how anybody can have hate for anybody but the Patriots.
Well, the Pats are going to be like a top 3 pick. Anyway, the AFC is a lot more wide open. There are tons of teams that can make it right now. The Steelers, the Denver Broncos, the Miami Dolphins are already in the playoffs. At least I think they are. If they win tonight, I think they clinch. I'm pretty sure.
We'll win tonight.
They'll be
But
10
the
and 3.
Titans at home.
Yes. Well,
we
you
should win. But again, any given Monday.
The one thing you could say about the Dolphins is that they always show up. They are not a team that all of a sudden is just going to decide to throw a stinker.
Oh,
They
that coach. I
level
do
of their
love that
competition.
coach.
Yes, they are a prepared team.
I'm just so happy we have a coach.
I think Mahomes, unfortunately, has a little bit of an ego. I think he's a great player. I believe this, but I do think that there is going to be a Taylor Swift effect with the Chiefs, especially if they don't win. It is a negative distraction because they don't stop talking about it. They don't stop covering it.
About Taylor and Travis.
And could you imagine? And if they had won that game yesterday on that hook and lateral that came from Travis at the end of the game, they would never be able to stop talking about it. And with that said,
do you think that she's like the Jessica Simpson, Tony Romo thing?
I think it could be. But at the moment, Tony lined up in the neutral zone. He was offsides. It wasn't even close. It was obvious that he was offsides. And then they had the audacity to complain and suggest that the refs were supposed to tell him that he was lined up in the neutral zone. What are you saying? That the refs are supposed to be helping the Chiefs? I mean, come on, man. Come on, man.
And I did see some really shitty calls.
Yeah, well, the refs suck. That's a whole other story. But if they get it right, they get it right. Like, you got to call it as you see it. So with that said.
Mahomes has an ego. And I definitely saw that at the end of it. It's sort of like he's pissed that everyone else didn't do their job to the best of their ability like he did. And if everyone had just done their job as good as he did, they would have done better.
Patrick.
That has a tint of Tom Brady to it.
Just a little bit. Patrick, you got 2 rings. Shut up.
It's a little Tom Brady-ish. It's
You're
not
already,
a good look.
if you get the 2nd ring, you're a legend and you're a Hall of Famer. Now everything is just gravy the rest of the way. So if you're going to act like a diva, which you're doing, then sorry, man. Not working.
Yeah, the Taylor Swift thing. And I couldn't care less about Taylor Swift.
We got to roll. Got a lot of things to do today. But please, I cannot emphasize.
Go on and make a comment.
Please make a comment as soon as we're off. Hit the like button. Hit the heart button. Do all of those things, and make sure to click the bell so that you're reminded to come and check out our show. We're definitely shooting at the hip right now, but we hope you like our content, even if we don't have a guest.
We're fine. I mean, guys, it's not like we lie. It happens. Sometimes guests don't show up. It happens.
That is true. So we appreciate you all. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you Thursday.
Bye all.